Rémy tried very hard reputation. Mr. Guilbeault was on the committee, but neither Mr. Guilbeault nor Rémy received a copy of the modified report before the meeting. The vice chair refused to provide a copy to Rémy and told him that his hands were tied and that he could only speak with him verbally on the changes. Rémy insisted, and he was finally given a copy at the end of the meeting. The vice chair, the report was only written in English. The vice chair was furious to note that Rémy had a note that was confidential, in which there was a reference to the ethnic origin of employees. Now, the question was asked why Rémy had that, and Rémy pointed out that it was a part of his evaluation. Rémy asked questions of the chair of the board on the errors in the report when he had been given a very good verbal report by members of the board during the March meeting in 2009. The board chair pointed out to Rémy that because he was a senior executive and very well paid, he would be perfectly able to defend himself without any assistance from committee members. Rémy suggested changes to the report, but the vice chair pointed out that he was not willing to make changes to the drafting of the report. A motion was voted, 3 against 1, and Rémy insisted that it be pointed out on the record that the decision was imposed during that meeting that lasted for more than 2 hours. I felt the confusion of Rémy, his level of stress, especially given that the chair was preventing him from speaking constantly. At the end of that meeting, he told me that he was going to challenge that evaluation and that he would lay complaints against 3 of the members because of their lack of professional respect. And that night, I told the members that I was very, very worried about Rémy because he was under such stress. That night, Rémy did not sleep. He told me that it was very difficult for him to face this situation. He had fought all his life and all his career to advocate for the rights of others, and he was not even able to advocate for his own rights now. Jacques Gautier's insinuations in the memo that was attached to Rémy's evaluation were particularly disturbing for him, and it was very difficult for Rémy to deal with the aggressive attitude of Aurel Brown, as well as from other members of the board. On the 1st of April, how could Mr. Matas have been able to talk about the performance evaluation of Rémy for July 2008, March 2009, when he was only appointed as a member to the board in November 2009? Rémy put that question to the chair of the board on the 6th of January and asked him about the note that was on his performance evaluation when he had only been in position for 3 weeks. I'd like to point out that these gestures, as well as the tone that was used, was disrespectful, shocking, and it was not appropriate on the part of members of a board, including the chair and the vice chair, especially of an organization that is supposed to advocate for rights for human beings and democracy. Here are some other events that I think are important. On the 7th of January 2010, Rémy was very, very upset to learn at a meeting that the board chair had decided to change the agenda so that the report that Rémy was supposed to present had been put off by a day to the 8th of January. I'll point out that Rémy worked very, very hard to draft this report during the Christmas vacation because it covered the period from June to December 2009. For Rémy, it was very, very important to go over that report at the beginning of the meeting because it would shed light on subjects that were going to be discussed afterwards. On the 8th of January 2010, there was a sudden death of Rémy, and that was the beginning of a period of great stress for myself, and it is still as stressful for me. I received condolences from the board, but this was rather shocking because Rémy had tried to meet many, many times in 2009 with Eileen Boyd, who was the Assistant Secretary to the Cabinet, Keith Christie as well, the Deputy Minister to Foreign Affairs, Jean-Maurice Duplessis was the Director of Operations in the Foreign Affairs Office, and Claude Carrière, who was an advisor on foreign policy. at the Privy Council. Rémy had tried to meet all these people to find a solution that was acceptable for a deteriorating situation, but his requests were never followed up on. I also received a letter from Minister Cannon in which he stated several times many compliments for Rémy, but this was an affront because the minister never ever responded to a request for a meeting with Rémy on the 3rd of November last. There was a very, very positive evaluation of Rémy's work during that same period by the minister and by Foreign Affairs, but that was not reflected in his performance report. In my opinion, the government did not do due diligence, and so there was bad governance. Now, on top of the stress for myself, I had to undergo further stress following his death. I received a letter of condolences from the chair, and I think that's hypocritical. And my own emails were in the media. There has been a suspension of staff, and I think that what this has done has complicated any administrative matters. Contrary to what was mentioned the 1st of April last by Jacques Gauthier, the staff did not give me back Rémy's computer because he had left Montreal with his equipment to go to the board meeting in Toronto. After his death, I brought all Rémy's material back to our residence in Montreal. On the 1st of March, Mr. Gauthier required that I return the goods on the 3rd of March at 5 o'clock. I had assured that it was my intention to provide these goods, but I was in Toronto for medical reasons, and therefore it was impossible for me on the 3rd of March to do this. But I received a second notice giving me for the 5th of March at 12 o'clock as a deadline, and Monsieur Gauthier said he would take legal steps. Contrary to what Mr. Matas said on the 1st of April, exchanges between Rémy and Eileen Boyd from the BCP confirms that the office was informed about the situation within the board and had been for several months. Rémy was not there when allegations were published 2 or 3 times in the National Post on 2007, and he was not there for several weeks, as Mr. Gauthier said on the 1st of April. It's very unfortunate that Rémy was surrounded by such a good team and that he had the confidence of his staff, but he was not extended the same courtesy by some members of the board. You'll agree with me that rights and democracy has not been spoken about as much as it has currently, and it's ironic to see that this kind of visibility is happening now. This crisis has been published elsewhere in the world, and one has seen it published in articles in newspapers like the FIDH and Gerald Steinberg, William Shabas, etc. I want to tell you that I will always regret that I supported Rémy's decision to accept his mandate with rights and democracy, not because of the organization or because of its staff, but because of the harassment that he had to undergo for several months and that contributed to increasing the stress to intolerable levels. I will never forgive myself to have not succeeded, despite all my efforts over the past few months of his life, to convince him to leave it. He kept repeating over and over that he would not accept that his reputation be attacked in such a manner, and that he would defend himself to the end, and that he would not resign because he owed that to the staff and to rights and democracy. That's the sort of man Rémy Beauregard was. For all those reasons that I've stated today, I would ask that the Privy Council remove this performance report and any notes that have been annexed to the file of my husband, Rémy Beauregard. I want public apologies on the part of the 7 members of the board who publicly criticized Rémy. I also want the 4 members of the board to be immediately replaced. Those who've made defamatory remarks with respect to Rémy, that is, Oral Brown, Jacques Gauthier, Elliot Tepper, and David Matas. In my opinion, these board members do not understand their role, and they are acting against the interests of rights and democracy and imposing their own personal ideologies. I want a copy of my testimony to be tabled in the files of those 4 board members. I also want the government to demand that there be a public independent inquiry so that light can be shed on all the activities and events that took place within the board at Rights and Democracy over the past year.